Hello, bird nerds. I'm Grant. I am a bird nerd and a horticulturist. This is the Bird Emergency, where we generally talk about rare birds, conservation, and once in a while something crops up and we just have to change our normal programming and talk about the news. Now, hello to Sue Morris on Instagram. I might just let you know we're streaming to Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, Twitter or X, and YouTube. If you want to leave a comment, ask a question, you may do that. It's pretty easy on all the platforms, but for Instagram, I do have to switch between streams. So if you want to have your say, ask a question, please do. But just know that if we're talking about something else, I might take a little while to jump back and do it. Now, if you've tuned in for the Dawn Chorus, I have to tell you we've pushed that back a week. The Dawn Chorus is where we share the birds that we hear and see early in the mornings in our various locations, and I've already received a few submissions. Thank you. You know who you are, who have already sent those in. Towards the end of the stream, I'll let you know how you can do that. Actually, let me let you know that now. Just email dawnchorus@thebirdemergency.com. Email me a video clip. I don't want sound recordings. I want a video clip. Even if you're not on video, you don't have to put yourself on, but just record what you're hearing early in the morning. Hello, Glenn. How are you? So just Glenn's in the Sydney region in New South Wales. I'm in the Melbourne region, the Melbourne northern suburbs for me. We are having a clear, brisk autumn day. Glenn's just had his second hailstorm. All happening. And thank you, Glenn, for your submission for Dawn Chorus. Everybody, Dawn Chorus will be happening next week. We're going to do a few special things next week. It's my birthday next week, and I've had such a disjointed month that I'm going to have a bit of fun next week. But Dawn Chorus will be happening next week, and if I look at my board, why don't we say Wednesday next week? Thursday next week is World Penguin Day, so I'm going to try and do some penguin stuff. But today, I really just want to talk about... Oh, thank you, Naomi. Thanks, Naomi, for the Facebook love. Let me just have a look at Insta. No questions yet on Instagram. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Folks. Environment news. The Environment Minister has decided that it's so complicated. There's 1,000 pages of legislation required to fix up our environment, biodiversity protection laws. So we just won't do them in this term. But we're going to do environmental protection, biodiversity protection in 3 stages. We've already done one. We've brought in the nature positive approach, carbon credit trading, biodiversity credits. That's one. We've done that. The next one, we're going to introduce the EPA, a federal EPA, to enforce the environmental laws. And it'll start enforcing the environmental laws that we have now. That, I think everybody has determined are shit. And they don't protect nature. But it's okay. We've now got a new body we're about to institute that will do the shit. and then sometime down the line, we will actually rewrite the legislation. This is not the first. Guardian. I do that all the time. I'm already registered and they keep giving me this rubbish. So they've already pushed them back once before. No, twice before. So in the coming weeks, the legislation, and I'll just say I'm reading from a story from Lisa Cox and Adam Morton that was published on Tuesday of this week. I was too upset yesterday to even... I read so much stuff. I was just too upset to even come on. I thought I would have said some ill-advised things. But here's where we're at. We're going to get an Environment Protection Agency and a second organisation called Environment Information Australia, which will provide public data on ecosystems, plants and animals. Okay. Are we going to do more study, or is this just going to be a website that has stuff like the Red List or university research that's already been done? Or will it be puff piece bullshit? My guess is that it will be puff piece bullshit. But let's be fair. Let's wait and see what happens. So at the media conference on Tuesday, Plibersek said the announcement of media legislation for a national EPA was a historic day for the environment. You don't say. I might say, see the bird behind me in my... here we are. Where are we there? That's an endangered bird. Critically endangered swift parrot. Wasn't very historic day for the swift parrot. But she did not guarantee that the broader package of environment laws, including the national standards, would be introduced before the next election. They'll be introduced when they're ready. Delayed or wider reform sparked accusations that the government was failing to deliver an overarching environment reform it announced in 2022. Now, let's just also be fair, right? Government is hard, right? And the government's, we have 3-year terms here, and we're just over halfway through. So you might say, well, gee, that's tough. But the current government was in opposition for 9 years talking about environment policy. Oh. So, but anyway, we couldn't get anything done in time. Sarah Hanson-Young, the Greens environment spokesperson, accused Labor of breaking a promise. James Trezise, who I've interviewed on the Bird Emergency before, the director of the not-for-profit Biodiversity Council, I've interviewed James when he was with the Invasive Species Council, said the delay was a significant step back from what the Albanese government committed to in its Nature Positive plan. Nature in Australia is in crisis and can't afford delays in the comprehensive reforms needed to fix our weak and broken environmental laws. I might just say, how many years ago was it now? 2019? Maybe 2018? 2019 probably, or 2020. No, 2020 I think it was, when I interviewed Dr. Peter Burnett about how broken our conservation laws are. So you can go back and find that episode in the podcast feed and thebirdemergency.com/podcast. If you aren't into podcasts, you can go back and find that. It's also on YouTube Music. You'll find podcast episodes if you're a YouTube fan. So nature in, going back to James Trezise's quote from the Biodiversity Council, nature in Australia is in crisis and can't afford delays in the comprehensive reforms needed to fix our weak and broken environmental laws. Plibersek had initially promised to introduce new laws, first in draft form for consultation and then to Parliament by last year. Speaking in 2022, and remember we played the speech she gave in Brisbane, I think at one of the conservation parks in Brisbane, where she said it was urgent and the problem was urgent, we must get to it urgently. Bullshit. Speaking in 2022, she said multiple reviews had shown the existing law, the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act, was broken. She promised changes in 2023 that would be better for business and the environment, including the introduction of a national environmental standards, faster decision-making and improved trust and integrity for the system. But the plans have faced public backlash from the West Australian Premier, Roger Cook, and the state's powerful mining and resources industries. On Tuesday, Plibersek said splitting up the changes would allow more time for consultation to make sure we get this right. When I first announced the Nature Positive plan, I said it would take a bit of cooperation, compromise, and common sense to deliver. That's exactly how we're approaching the rollout. I want to come back to that in a second too. And while I just have a break, I'll just check Instagram for comments. No comments on Instagram. Oh, also, if you're on Instagram, I'll just let you know that the stream on Instagram, and this is an Instagram thing, it's not a me thing, only goes for 1 hour. So if you do want to stick around and catch the whole conversation, because we're going to be going longer than an hour. I mean, hell, we're already 22 minutes into when I started the stream. thebirdemergency.com/YouTube or thebirdemergency.com/Facebook are the places to head to when we get around to an hour. And I'll try and remember the warning to let you know that it's time. Anyway, getting back to what the minister said. Plibersek said the EPA legislation would create an agency with strong new powers to better protect nature. Now, when I hear words like, or a phrase like, better protect nature, I start to think weasel words, phraseology that means nothing, and I start to sniff the aroma of bullshit. It's not saying better protect endangered species. It's not saying better protect ecosystems at risk or specific habitats. It's going to protect nature. Now, would someone like to... actually, here's an invitation. Please jump in the comments now and give me your definition of nature. Because remember, we're having nature-positive conservation driven by this minister and this government. Just, come on, play along. Give me your definition of what nature is. Because we're going to better protect nature with the Environment Protection Agency. She said the laws would allow the EPA to act as a delegate for the minister and make decisions on whether development proposals went ahead. So, it will make decisions on whether development proposals went ahead. The agency would initially be focused on cracking down on illegal land clearing and enforcing environmental offsetting conditions. Ah, beautiful. A government audit found about 1 in 7 developments approved under existing laws that the consensus is, I mean, the minister has said they're broken. So 1 in 7 developments already That's more than 10%. Are in breach of offset conditions already that required some form of compensation in return for being allowed to damage nature. Protection. Okay, but it's going to better protect nature by compensating in some form in return for being allowed to damage nature. Glenn, nature, pretty much anything that's not human-made or tampered with. Well, it's good that we're going to protect that. Come on, everyone, jump in with your definition of nature, and don't look up a dictionary, because nature is one of those terms that I think if you put 100 people in a room and asked everyone to write down in 3 sentences what is nature, I reckon out of 100 people you might find 5 that come close to writing the same thing. But anyway, we'll check that. Instagram, no comments on Instagram yet. Plibersek said the EPA chief would be an independent statutory appointment, similar to the Australian Federal Police Commissioner. We haven't had any fucked AFP commissioners, have we? To make sure no government can interfere with the new agency's important enforcement work. Oh, like all of the independent bodies. Nature from Naomi definition: all of the physical world, including plants, animals, the landscape, and things of the earth, not human creations. So, weather, yeah. So, in nature, we often have erosion, terrible erosion. We often have devastating wildfires, landslips, which wipe out critical habitats or species. That's all right. It's nature. So, Plibersek, let me say, no government can interfere with the new agency's important enforcement work. The agency would initially sit within the Environment Department before becoming an independent statutory authority in July 2025. Now, July 2025 is basically a year away. Okay? Well, we've got 15 months. 15 months away. And we probably aren't going to have the legislation by then. Anyway, Plibersek said the second new body, Environment Information Australia, would release a national State of the Environment report every 2 years. Don't we already get a State of the Environment report? Isn't that what the last government didn't release and Plibersek took a long time to release? Its primary role would be to provide up-to-the-minute information on Australia's environment to assist the public and business. The Coalition's environment spokesperson, Jonathan Duniam, he's a high-profile dude, isn't he? Jonathan Duniam said the announcement showed Plibersek had failed as Environment Minister, describing it as the creation of a new bureaucracy with no new laws to administer. Not very often I'll admit to agreeing with someone from the Coalition. Actually, I don't usually have to admit to it. They generally say nothing that I agree with, but I'll agree with that. Senator Hanson-Young from the Greens said the changes did not go far enough to protect nature and accused the government of giving in to a 2-year-long campaign by the mining industry and big developers. She said the government was engaged in piecemeal tinkering when it had promised a full environmental law reform package. And that's politics 101, really, isn't it? Do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and you can say to low information voters, look what we've been doing. We've introduced the EPA. We now have an EPA. That's great, isn't it? there's no legislation to do anything, but we've got an EPA. Oh, and the rusted's on will go, yay. Labor promised to fix Australia's broken environment laws, but without stopping native forest logging, and forest fuel expansions, the government will be failing to protect our planet and failing to keep its promise to Australian people. That was Senator Hanson-Young. Conservation groups called on the government to deliver the promised full package of reform before the election and expressed disappointment over the delay. The Australian Conservation Foundation Chief Executive, Kelly O'Shannessy, said the promised crackdown on illegal land clearing and the establishment of an EPA were welcome and necessary, but without comprehensive reform, the agency would be enforcing a flawed and ineffective law that still needs serious surgery. Environment groups are expected to air their concerns with the changes at a Senate inquiry hearing into the extinction crisis on Wednesday, which was yesterday, and there was a hearing yesterday, and we can, I'll get some clips and stuff to talk about that a bit tomorrow. Let me just say welcome Twitch, welcome Facebook, I know that's where you are, Naomi, YouTube, Glenn and friends, and Twitter. It's nice to see so many of you on Twitter/X, but I would like to see some comments coming in, and hello Instagram as well. I think I'm a little bit rambunctious for the Instagram folks. Now, what I would like to do now is move along a little bit from, where are we? Just got to find the first article that I want to go to. Where are we? Where is it? Where is it? Sorry, everyone. I thought I had it. Great Barrier Reef. Oh no, that's that one. Oh, where are we? Oh, this is it. Okay. All right, let's open this tab. Okay, this is from the Conversation, not the Conservation. Now, this is an article that was published April 17, which was yesterday, written by Professor Ewan Ritchie, Professor in Wildlife Ecology and Conservation, Deakin University. Megan C. Evans, Senior Lecturer, Public Sector Management, University of New South Wales. And Yung-En Chi, one of my absolute favourites on Twitter, or if you want to know anything in this complicated space of offsetting and carbon credits and really climate change law and policy, I would suggest following Yung-En Chi from Melbourne University. She's a Senior Research Fellow, University of Melbourne. Okay, so I'm going to read out this article. Sorry if you've already seen it. Oh, this is a great photo too they picked here. Minister Plibersek is looking a little bit worse for wear in that shot, I might say. And I'll just say hi. Instagram too, remember, you can ask questions, pop a comment in, and I'll keep coming back and trying to get to you. Okay. The article is titled, Australia's long-sought stronger environmental laws just got indefinitely deferred. It's back to business as usual. And I might add, stick around, I'm going to show you some of the articles and the commentary back from 2022 and 2023 to give you an idea of why perhaps not only I but many other people were white hot with anger yesterday and really disappointed. Okay, I'll read the whole thing. It is from, as I said before, The Conversation. Ewan Ritchie, Megan C. Evans, Jung and Chi. We've long known Australia's main environmental laws aren't doing their job. And we know Australians want better laws. Actually, there's a link there. Labor was promising to fix them. I'll just go and have a look at what that link goes to. Oh, Biodiversity Council. National survey finds Australians want government to lift their game for nature. And that's from March, and 81% of Australians support implementing measures to protect Australian wildlife of cultural significance. Oh, that's a different. 95% of people want the federal government to spend more on nature. 75% of people feel that at least 2% of the federal budget should be spent on nature. This would represent more than a five-fold increase of current investments. We'll get to that. I hadn't looked at that, but we will get to that shortly. Remember, comment. You can ask a question, have your say. If you feel like venting, today is a good day for venting. But yesterday, the government walked back its commitment, deferring the necessary reforms of the Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act indefinitely, in the face of pressure from the state Labor governments in Western Australia and the mining and resource industries. Federal Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek was on the front foot yesterday. On the front foot, getting out there, getting the message out, promising the new national agency, Environment Protection Australia, the EPA, and Environmental Information Australia will still go ahead. But decisions by the planned agency can be overruled by the minister via expansive call-in powers, because that will really, really, really protect the environment if we get a Conservative government in the near future, won't it? And because Labor has backed away from rolling out essential, legally enforceable national environmental standards this term, it's hard to see how the agency can actually be the tough cop on the beat that we were promised. Even when they use terminology like that, you know that it's going to be a wankorama, a complete bullshit snowstorm, or hurricane, bullshit hurricane when they use tough cop on the beat. Labor promised substantive change that would prevent further species extinctions. No more extinctions. Tanya Plibersek was so clear about that. But yesterday's announcement was basically the continuation of business as usual. I think it's worse than that. I think it's an indication that they are not serious. Now, I really hope that in a year or two's time, I have to come back and sit here and stare in here and go, I was wrong. Plibersek is amazing. These are the toughest and most effective environmental laws that we've ever seen delivered in a package. But I reckon I won't be. But I will eat a shit sandwich if I'm wrong. Environmental organisations such as the Australian Conservation Foundation, which backed many of Labor's proposed reforms, I was a sceptical bastard back then, wasn't I? And now deeply disappointed. So, what just happened? That's the subheading here. Yesterday's announcement effectively defers substantive change until after the next federal election. Rather than a full package, the government has split its planned reforms into three parts under the umbrella name of the Nature Positive Plan. The first is the nature repair market. Now, we have talked about that before on the show, but we'll do the summary now, and that's a good chance for me to just have a pop back and see if anyone's commented on Instagram. let me just say, gee, this is a nice. Hi, Twitch. Hello, Facebook. Hello, YouTube. And hello, X. All right, back to it. So we're getting it split into three parts under the Nature Positive Plan. The first is the nature repair market, which many stakeholders, conservationists and business leaders alike, have been sceptical of. It was legislated in December, but nature repair projects can't start until the market governance and methods are established. Oh, haven't got them yet. What a surprise. But we do have the nature repair market. We've done something. Low information voters, we've done something for the nature. The second will create the Federal Environment Protection Agency, Environment Protection Australia Agency. I'm going to be making that mistake forever, calling it the EPA, where it really should be the EPA. And Environment Information Australia body. The agency, and one is an agency and one is a body. Quango, wango, bullshito. The agency will be responsible for development assessments, decisions, and compliance and enforcement. We're going to enforce the broken laws for now, with staff drawn from existing divisions within the departments. So, people involved. So this tells me that people involved in conservation and science who are not currently part of government will not be being recruited when this body is set up. This body is going to be set up with existing public servants. I'm not 100% against that, but it seems like a really lost opportunity. So let's go again. The agency will be responsible for development assessments, decisions and compliance and enforcement, with staff drawn from existing divisions within the departments, while the information agency will support decision making with data, as well as report on progress against environmental targets. The targets that we do not have. But the third is a crucial bit, the reformed environmental protection and biodiversity laws and the legally enforceable national environmental standards underpinning them. We need these standards and laws to properly address long-standing deficiencies, such as lack of clear policy objectives and no-go zones for development, failure to account for climate change impacts, ongoing native vegetation clearing and habitat destruction that drives extinction, and a lack of alignment with other laws. That's the biggest problem, is you might have a law about, maybe governing mining that is inconsistent with environmental protection law, and then it might go to the minister, but which minister? Will it go to the Minister for Industry? Will it go to the Minister for the Environment? Who wins the battle in Cabinet? We see this happen all the time. Still just popped over. No comments on Instagram. But these vital elements have been deferred to an unspecified date. I mean, that's really gutless in itself. Despite the urgency of our extinction crisis, we have a cart but no horse in sight. And yes, we agree with that. So how did we get here? In 2020, Graham Samuel released his scathing report detailing the many findings of the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act. The laws, he wrote, were ineffective and needed fundamental reform. Labor came to office pledging to end extinctions, tackle climate change and repair nature. And I was one of the people who was really, really, really pleased. And really only because of the noise that the government had made on biodiversity, conservation, and climate change. Because I didn't think that any incoming Labor government could be as abjectly shit as the last government when it came to conservation. But it's pretty abject so far. I mean, we'll get to it. 2 years later, little solid progress has been made. In cases such as the controversial Lee Point development planned in Darwin, the government has appeared to put development ahead of considerations of threatened species and First Nations cultural values. Now, if we've got time, we'll get to some of that too. And just a warning, 15 minutes to go. If you're on Instagram, come on over to thebirdemergency.com/YouTube or thebirdemergency.com/Facebook. 2 years later, little solid progress has been made in cases such as, just read that. Graham Samuel, called for the comprehensive amendments to the laws within 12 months and for full reform by 2020. Instead, the government only began consulting in May 2023, undertook a lock-up consultation with peak environment bodies in October and ran public consultation in November. Now we hear these reforms have been pushed back indefinitely. In the West Australian, of course, she's talking to the West Australian, Minister Plibersek described the changes as a staged rollout of sensible, more mealy mouth bullshit words. Sensible reforms that better protect Australia's natural wonders. I hear Ayers Rock is a natural wonder. So is the 90 Mile Beach. Great Barrier Reef, which is currently undergoing one of the worst bleaching events. Natural wonders, while also supporting faster, more efficient decision-making. This package is a win for the environment and a win for business. Now, is there anything in that paragraph that indicates it will be effective for protecting endangered species and stop further extinctions? Let's read it again. A staged rollout of sensible reforms that better protect Australia's natural wonders while also supporting faster, more efficient decision-making. This package is a win for the environment and a win for business. That's, I think Sir Humphrey Appleby wrote that paragraph because it says absolutely nothing. Speaking on ABC Radio, Minister Plibersek denied there was any unnecessary delay. There is necessary delay. Here's the quote. There is a careful approach to make sure we get this right because this is generational change. I'm not going to go into the Parliament with a flawed set of laws that we can't get support for. I'm just happy to live with the flawed set of laws that we've already got and that I have described as broken. The authors of the article go on to say, this is questionable. In 2022, Australia signed up to the ambitious global push to turn around the destruction of the natural world, the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which I no doubt need to go into a bit more. We agreed to work to bring biodiversity loss almost... So we've actually committed in an international agreement to bring biodiversity loss to almost zero by 2030. That's 6 years. But we won't have the laws for about 2 years at the earliest. So that'll mean everything's going to be right within 4 years. we agreed to work to bring biodiversity loss to almost to zero by 2030, and for native wild species to become more abundant and resilient by 2050. Deferring our main environmental laws is not the way to do this. And as we talked about in many instances, in the wild, there's virtually none of these endangered species in Australia, critically endangered species, that are increasing in their populations. Happy to be corrected, but I think it's because we've got birds in captivity, and I'm talking mostly about birds, that there are maybe more of them than there were 15, 20 years ago. But they're not out in the wild. And as you've heard me pull my hair out and express my frustration that what is the point of captive breeding and releasing into the wild if there's nowhere for the birds/animals to live? The next heading of this article: restoring nature isn't possible without stronger environment laws. Preserving nature can only be done with substantive legislative reform, given Australia's existing environmental laws do not effectively regulate and stop the ongoing destruction of nature. As Samuel, that's Graham Samuel, who carried out the review of the laws, as Samuel pointed out, our current laws are not keeping the environment in good shape. They focus on individual approaches for projects, individual approvals for projects, not clear outcomes for the environment. As it stands, there will be no climate trigger, meaning no assessment of impact on climate change. Despite the threat this poses to biodiversity, the Great Barrier Reef is suffering its worst recorded mass bleaching this year, the 5th in 8 years. Even so, fossil fuel production continues, with many more projects awaiting approval. I've got a good thing to show you in a minute too about that. Nature can't afford further delays. Without the reformed environment protection laws, the strengthened safeguard mechanism, the government's main plan to drive down emissions from large polluters, will not work properly. This is because environmental law needs to be amended so the greenhouse gas emissions from new coal and gas developments are reported on and tracked. At the moment, they're not tracked. We just estimate what's going on. In fact, without the national environmental standards, which the Federal Environment Department dubs the centrepiece of our reforms. Yes, Minister, here we are. Here's the centrepiece of our reforms. The whole package of reforms seems toothless. Labor's failure so far to deliver on its promise puts the goals of no new extinctions and a nature positive future for Australia at risk. So, I just do want to go back. Let me see if okay. Oh, we've done that one. Yeah. Just want to show you a few of the headlines that I found looking around. Now, is this today? Oh, no, this is from the 10th of April. And this is in The Guardian. Octopuses could lose eyesight and struggle to survive if ocean temperatures keep rising, study finds. It's cheerful news, isn't it? This is 27th of March. Australia's carbon credits system a failure on global scale, study finds. Researchers find offset approach, which is supposed to regenerate scrubby outback forests, was not reducing emissions as promised. But people are getting credits. They're getting paid for it. Australia's main carbon credits offset method is a failure on global scale and doing little, if anything, to help address the climate crisis, according to a major new study. Now, Uh, yeah, we'll come back to that one maybe next week. Just an idea here. I'll just show you a few of these headlines. Now, this is from, when's this from? This is just from 21st of March. So the locals in Queensland wanted the Adani mine. This is the one that threatens the black-throated finch. Now, the locals said, we need this for jobs. We need this for jobs. But now Adani, the company behind the mine, is saying, we'd like to employ anyone but locals. So you just never believe any of the bullshit. What have we got? Oh, Steve Kerry, thank you for the Facebook love too, by the way. Thank you very much. What else have we got? Now, this is March 2024. And let me just... and I'm just showing you this headline because why it's really important to be mindful of the words that the government say and the phraseology they use, along with the industry groups, because almost half of cane growers sceptical of the science behind laws protecting the Great Barrier Reef. So I guess in a way you can't really blame farmers for having no faith in the research or in the science behind the laws protecting the Great Barrier Reef, because the Great Barrier Reef is in crisis now. So maybe it's a fair enough thing if you're a farmer and you think, well, you've brought in all those laws and you're supposed to be protecting it, but nothing's going to protect it, so why bother making me do something different? And I'll just show you another one. I mean, this is just... this is a month old. But critically endangered stonefly with remarkable lifespan faces extinction because the Victorian government isn't going to protect its endangered habitat. Critically endangered stonefly that exists around Mount Donabuang. They only live for they live for 2 years. The government went against the opinion of its own scientists who argued in favour of the further protection measures, the association said. The stonefly lives in a small area susceptible to major threats, including climate change, fire, water pollution and visitation, meaning it needs special management. A critical habitat determination for the wingless stonefly would have started a process to give this remarkable creature extra care and effort required to protect it from extinction. The stonefly faced extinction after the decision, which was contrary to decades' worth of scientific work showing it had declined by 80%, despite being protected in a national park. So it's not fluffy and beautiful, so it doesn't get looked at. Okay. No, I'm not going to go there. Let's go back. Okay. Let's have a look at that survey that the Biodiversity Council had put out, which was referenced in that article by Ewan and Megan and Yun and Chi. The key findings for the survey are here. 95% of people, that's 19 in 20, want the federal government to spend more on nature. 75% of people, that's 3 in every 4, feel that at least 2% of the federal budget should be spent on nature. This would represent more than 5-fold increase of current investments. And remember, the government just announced another $50 billion on top of the $384 billion for defence to support AUKUS and reorient our defence force. We haven't got any money to protect the environment, but we just found $50 billion down behind the cushions of the couch. 71% of people, again about 3 in 4, believe that the government should have a duty of care to protect future generations from environmental harm. 81% of people, 4 in 5, support measures to protect Australian wildlife of cultural significance, such as the platypus. 67% of people, 2 in every 3, support reducing the use of biodiversity offsets through better planning. Why are governments wedded to these concepts that the population is not supportive of? 64% of people, roughly 2 in 3, think it's very important that Australia meets its international obligations to stop or reduce the extinction of plants and animals. And 89% of people, about 9 in 10, said nature conservation issues would influence how they voted in future election. Now, I'm one of those people. 15 years ago, I would have counted myself as a rusted-on ALP person. And now, I certainly don't want to see a Conservative government brought in for a whole lot of reasons. But because I have now decided that nearly all of my voting is only on environmental, and that's pretty broad bucket, climate change, of course, but biodiversity is really my main issue. And if we had a coalition putting forward something that I thought that would work, and that if they actually said, here, we've developed a set of proposed laws that we want to bring in, and they said they would work with independents and the Greens, why the hell wouldn't I give Labor a kicking? Why the hell wouldn't I put them below the Liberals, as much as I detest them in general? If it would achieve what I want, I would do it. I'm not on the team. I'm looking for a result. Okay. Okay. Here's the. I'm just having a look. There's the. Okay. Now, I just want to sort of wrap up, and I'll wait for comments, and hopefully some of you will be commenting. Hello, Josh McLeod. I'm assuming you're there still on Instagram. If you have a question or a comment, please just pop it in the comments there, and I'll come back and check if you've had something to say. Now we'll just take a trip down memory lane. This is from October 2024. Oh, I've got to do this. I'll do it later. So this is, what did I say? October 2022. Australia announces plan to halt extinction crisis and save 110 species. Priority targeting, including many of Australia's best-known native animals, will help others in the same habitats, Environment Minister says. Now, I think I referenced this when this was made. Here's Tanya Plibersek in front of a cage with a greater glider. But positive, right? The government plans to halt extinction crisis and save 110 species. But she didn't go out to a location where there is actually animals, nature. She did all her stuff at zoos. Guess it's hard work being a minister. Now, there's I just want to find the other headlines. Here we go. So this is from The Conversation, May 15, 2023. Here we go. Yes, Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek approved a coal mine, but saved the angst for decisions that matter more. This is from John Quiggin, Professor, School of Economics, the University of Queensland. Not exactly a conservationist, I would have thought. Now, I've just got to just taken Instagram out, and I'll just no, we won't do that. Sorry if you were on Instagram and Instagram's gone. The outcry was loud and swift last week after Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek approved a new coal mine. Now, this was May 15, 2023, so 11 months ago. The project, the Isaac River Mine, will extract metallurgical coal to be burned for steel making. Environmental groups decried the potential damage the mine would cause to wildlife, water quality and the climate. Any new coal mine is inconsistent with the global goal of reaching net zero emissions by 2050. But the Isaac River Mine is probably the least bad of those under consideration. Blah, 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 blah. A lesson in spin doctoring is a heading. Plibersek's handling of recent coal mine announcements is a masterclass in egregious political spin doctoring. On May 5, Plibersek triumphantly announced she had rejected 2 Queensland coal mine proposals, the McMines China Stone Mine and the Stanmore Resources Range Project, because the proponents failed to provide information about potential damage to the environment. The decision was widely welcomed, but in reality, and this is coming from an economics professor, but in reality, scuppering the mines was an easy and relatively uncontroversial decision for Plibersek. Both proposals had been moribund for a long time. Indeed, McMines abandoned its proposal in 2019, and the phone number for its Darwin office is no longer even connected. So there we go. You earn greenie points, kudos, with the environmental movement for disallowing a mine that the proponent of the mine has already walked away from, and they know it's not going to happen. They're not doing it. They've closed their office. Some observers suspected the announcements was meant to soften us up for bad news. That news came 6 days later when the details for the Isaac River mine approval were quietly uploaded to the Federal Environment Department's website. No trip out to the mine site to announce it. Maybe she could have gone back to the greater glider in the cage and announced it. The approval was made public right before opposition leaders Peter Dutton's budget reply speech. This follows a well-worn strategy of governments burying bad news by releasing it concurrently with bigger news events. Anyway, we'll get down to the bottom of this article, and the heading is, "Let's not get distracted." In these circumstances, Plibersek played the media well by making the Isaac River mine the featured dish in a menu of bad news. The approval was not the only decision made by Plibersek last week, or the most important one. She also allowed 3 other mine projects, 2 in New South Wales and 1 in Queensland, to proceed to the next stage of environmental assessments. These projects have been sent back to Plibersek for further consideration after an environmental group requested the effects of climate change be considered. Now, we still don't have climate change being considered in legislation. It's all whether the minister thinks they should do it. Anyway, let's get to the big thing. Big coal tests remain heading. Sorry, I'm skipping through, but so much of this is old news. Optimists can console themselves with the idea that things would have been worse. Things would have been worse if the Morrison government was still in power. So even though they're shit, they would have been really shit. But none of the approval decisions announced by Labor so far differ from those we might have expected under the coalition. And there is one intriguing case where things look like going the other way. In the lead up to last year's federal election, the then Prime Minister Scott Morrison blocked the gas drilling proposal off the New South Wales coast, using ministerial powers he secretly conferred upon himself. Remember that? When he was holding, 5 extra portfolios in secret? The Albanese government has taken legal action to nullify the decision. So, they haven't continued to ban the offshore gas project off the coast of Sydney. So, anyway, we're supposed to think that Plibersek's going to do great stuff. Okay, now this is from Peter Burnett, who Honorary Associate Professor, ANU College of Law, Australian National University, who I interviewed about the Environmental Protection Biodiversity Act several years ago. Now, this is from, what's the date on this? December 13, 2022. Complete elation greeted Plibersek's big plans to protect nature, but hurdles litter the path. So generally, so here's the 4 hurdles that Peter Burnett put or sees ahead. The absence of a climate trigger. There's still no climate trigger. That's number 1. Number 2, eliminating weasel words. Oh my God. All she utters are weasel words. Number 3, the difficulty of regional planning. Okay, well, yeah. And number 4, Indigenous views and values. All right, so we've got a positive headline. Peter Burnett points out some of the problems. And what have we seen? She's approved Lee Point, which the local Indigenous community say is an important place for them, a significant place for the traditional owners, and it's a place where you find the Gouldian finch in Darwin. But not protected. We're going to put up defence housing there. So, let's see what else. All right, here's another one from... This is from Justine Bell-James, Associate Professor of the T.C. Baird School of Law, the University of Queensland, and this is from February 9, 2023. Plibersek killed off Clive Palmer's coal mine. It's an Australian first, but it may never happen again. Oh. Plibersek's decision is significant, is part of this article. It's the first time a coal mine has been refused in the 2 decades of our federal environment law has been in place. But those hoping the decision sets a precedent for other mine proposals are likely to be disappointed. Palmer's mine was not refused on climate change grounds. Objectors to coal mine will still need to persuade the federal government the link between future coal mine developments and global warming. So why did the Palmer mine cross this exceptional hurdle for refusal? Largely because of its location. The proposed site was just 10 kilometres from the Great Barrier Reef. Okay, so basically the article says don't expect other mines to be rejected. So I mentioned Lee Point. This is from the 28th of May. Again, another reason why I've been so disappointed and, a bit... Well, I found it pretty hard to do the live streams because of decisions like this. Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek rejects Aboriginal Cultural Heritage application at Lee Point. So, what's next? Traditional owners are considering all legal options and have vowed to continue the fight to protect the site from bulldozers. But basically, it's going on ahead, and to sort of tamp down some of the concern about the Gouldy and Finch, the end of February, the Northern Territory government proposed Casuarina Coastal Reserve National Park, but to exclude Lee Point, which is where I saw a Gouldy and Finch. In short, the Northern Territory government is planning to declare Darwin's Casuarina Coastal Reserve as a national park. But advocates are disappointed. The proposal excludes an adjacent woodland block where rare Gouldy and Finches have been sighted. So, look, we understand you're all really concerned about this finch, and what we'd like to do is protect a reserve that is already a reserve. How about we upgrade it, but we won't include the land where the endangered species has actually been seen. We will protect some land that we're kind of already protecting, but that where the endangered species hasn't been seen. But maybe when we've buggered up the bit where they do live, maybe they can come down the road. This is what is wrong with this approach that we have with environmental protection here. Naomi, ridiculous ruling. Yeah. Well, it's not really a ruling because there was no body that made the decision. The minister made the decision. It's a decision, not a ruling. She wasn't forced into it. They have just decided that Lee Point is not significant. Here's Environmental Justice Australia. I can't see a date on this one. Can't see a date on this one. But this is after Plibersek's decision. Traditional owners considering legal options. So Defence Housing Australia wants to bulldoze Aboriginal cultural heritage to deliver its multi-million dollar Lee Point residential development 17 kilometres from Darwin. Elders and other experts made representations about the significance of the area, but Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek has not listened to their voices and has refused to declare that Lee Point is a significant Aboriginal area. And as much as we talked about, or that the Gouldian Finch has always been included in the discussion about Lee Point, Naomi says she's very disappointed to hear this. She's in the Friends of Lee Point and the place is amazing. I can say it's such a small segment of land, but the bird life there was amazing. And I mean, to see the Gouldian Finch, 15 k's out of Darwin, was pretty stunning. And of course the Mast Finches and double bars, and it was just a great place. But that's all going to be gone. It's all going to be gone. So I'll just read the more from the Environmental Justice Australia. This is their part of that article about the Gouldian Finch habitat under threat. Alongside rich cultural heritage, Lee Point is home to the rainbow-coloured Gouldian finches, mammals and migratory shorebirds of international significance. Evidence gathered by the environmental group Friends of Lee Point shows the development will destroy 75% of Lee Point's woodland trees. Now, ECNT, Environment Centre, Northern Territory, is calling on DHA to put this development at other available brownfield sites instead of destroying the habitat of threatened species. Now, I just wanted to bring this up because the reason Plibersek was making the decision on Lee Point was on whether the area was of significant, of significance to traditional owners. And she made the decision no. She wasn't making it on the basis of any endangered species. So yeah. Even though that was a lot of the talking points in the discussion that was driving a lot of the publicity, a lot of the social media about Lee Point, they've made an economic decision. They want to build the defence housing in Darwin, and this is the cheapest place for them to do it. And they've done it. Where was this from? I'm not subscribing to the Northern Territory News, but I don't even know. I don't remember what day this was from. This is about a month ago. After Plibersek rejected Save Lee Point, and of course there's a visited Lee Point. Yeah. Now this is from the 3rd of April in this year, and now this is a media release from the Environment Centre of Northern Territory, and let's. So, following Federal Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek's decision to reject the cultural heritage application lodged by the Larrakia Dungalaba traditional owners regarding Lee Point, the Environmental Centre NT urges Minister Plibersek to revoke approval for the controversial Lee Point development in Darwin, following allegations that Defence Housing Australia breached the conditions of its approval intended to protect endangered species. DHA is required to compensate for the destruction of old growth trees, beg your pardon, habitat for Gordian finches and black-footed tree rats in accordance with the federal approvals prescribed by Minister Plibersek. Environmental Centre Northern Territory has raised allegations that DHA breached a condition of approval under the EPBC Act, Environmental Protection Biodiversity Conservation Act, the one that's broken and that is insufficient, as it was required to submit an offset plan for the black-footed tree rat in the first 12 months after the project commenced. Despite the works having commenced by September 2021, the centre has been informed that an offset plan is yet to be approved. Now, they're required to have submitted an offset plan. So I'm not sure whether they have submitted an offset plan. There hasn't been one approved, but I'm going to guess that they have in fact submitted something. Yeah. So yes. Anyway. So, yeah, I mean, this is a press release. And yeah, I'm just saying, yeah, I know that Hanson Young and Grogan visited Lee Point, but they visited Lee Point after the decision had been made. I would have loved to see them up there when the occupation was happening, when, about the time Millie and I was up there. Could have really done with some more publicity and pressure then. You can join Friends of Lee Point. Yes, you can. And they're pretty active on Instagram and Facebook. And they met with Joel Bowen, Planning Minister. Yeah, but the decision's already been made. So now what you've got to do is reverse a decision that's already been made, which I think is a lot harder. Now this is the ABC News, 20th of June 2023. So this is after the initial approval. So she initially approved it, she's reviewed it, and she has now approved it again. I didn't see anywhere near that many Gordians at when I was there. Now, Canberra Times broke a story about Lee Point. It is allegations about misconduct. Let me find that. I haven't seen. The reason I think this might be done and dusted. Oh, this will be the. Okay. Whistleblower speaks out about Defence Housing Project. Okay, let's get this up and see what we get. A whistleblower has accused Defence officials of ignoring environmental warnings and planning rules over a housing development on land that is home to several threatened species. Okay, so this is Amanda Lillyman, about Amanda Lillyman's report. I'm just reading this as we go. Uh, so Amanda's already complained several times to the Northern Territory government. There's been a lack of response. She's written to Federal Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek outlining allegations of misconduct. Of course, Plibersek hasn't responded. A public interest disclosure has also been lodged with the Commonwealth Ombudsman, asking the watchdog to investigate suspected wrongdoing at Defence Housing Australia. The housing agency voluntarily stopped work at Lee Point. So they weren't ordered to stop. They voluntarily stopped. Plibersek did the cultural heritage assessment. She's rejected it, and Defence Housing Australia said it fulfilled all requirements in relation to the shorebird monitoring program. So that's it. So it's a shorebird monitoring program, so not the Gordian Finch. The Government Business Enterprise said it has obtained the necessary approvals, consents, permits and other authorisations required by Commonwealth and Northern Territory law, including clearance for the proposed development by the Aboriginal Areas Protection Authority. Plibersek previously acknowledged the development will have significant impacts for at least one endangered bird, but she was satisfied this would be acceptable, provided there were changes made to mitigate, manage or otherwise compensate. So, what that language says, you don't have to stop the impact. What you have to do is find some other bit of land or pay money or something, otherwise compensate. It's not mitigate, manage and otherwise compensate. It's mitigate, manage or otherwise compensate. It's weasel words. It's unenforceable. And so here's a spokesperson for the Northern Territory Department of Infrastructure and Planning acknowledged community concerns and complaints had been received related to the shorebird monitoring program at Lee Point, but said it would not comment on enforcement matters. Dr. Lillyman accused both levels of government of failing to act and said it had been left to the community to hold the housing agency to account. And here's a quote from Amanda. "It's just a complete disregard for the environmental processes that are in place to protect threatened species." So, I don't disagree with any of the comments and sentiments made. As Naomi says, how do you compensate for an endangered bird? Bullshit. Yes, but this is the problem. Even if there was malfeasance, even if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, the decision's been made. The agency now has legal right to pursue, and now it's up to a court to force them to stop. And by the time that happens, the 800 houses will be bloody built. That's why all of this, all of these weasel words, they have to be removed from all of these approvals. Have to be removed from the legislation, and there has to be a focus on protection. And already in all the stuff we've been reading just about Plibersek, most of the focus is on process and business. The emphasis is not on protecting endangered species or endangered habitats, endangered locations. You know, she's using terms like our natural wonders. Well, our natural wonders are anything that you want to call it. The Great Australian Bight is a natural wonder, perhaps, unless you've got oil rigs there. But maybe it's still a natural wonder if you drive 20 kilometres further down and you can't see the oil rigs anymore. Uluru, Ayers Rock, the Daintree. They're just... It needs to be backed by hard science, and I don't know. I suspect that we're all about to get completely stuffed over again. So anyway, that's about all I wanted to go through today. It's really, really frustrating to be in the position where I think many of us are now. That, well, certainly this is how I feel. I was very, very happy that we had elected a government, albeit with the Teals, Independents, Greens, and I thought that we had elected a majority party that was really serious about its commitment to conservation and biodiversity protection. I believed it. I now no longer believe it, and I am absolutely, completely ambivalent about whether or not the ALP remain in power. I am ambivalent. I'm not hostile yet. But I really do think that Tanya Plibersek, her interests have always been in education and other social policy. I don't think she really gives a shit about the nuts and bolts, the tin tacks of environment policy. I think she's very good at spin and presentation. And I'm not sure that there's anyone in the upper echelons of the ALP in power that is actually committed to the environment. I think they've all splintered off to become Greens or Independents or Teals. So I'll inject some of my personal politics here, because we are getting into, we're in the run up to election season again. There'll be a budget delivered in, about 2 weeks? And then it will be full on into electioneering for a year. I think it's imperative that we get more independent voices, be it the Teals, be it other real independents, not any pretend independents that are funded by development groups or run by union groups. Look, Naomi, good. After that depressing news or stuff, a bit of good local news for Naomi. Glossy black cockatoos are here. I missed half the show because I was getting a shot of them. I'm disappointed with government decisions as well, though. Well, I hope you did get a good shot of the glossies. I hope you can show them off. I'm following up a lot of people about Photography Friday. Oh. And more habitat gardening. So maybe on a Photography Friday we'll have an opportunity, Naomi, for you to show us at some stage. Let me just... I don't know why that. Just realised I've got that focus box in front of me, and I don't know why it's there. there we go. I suddenly just got better looking, didn't I? Okay. Glenn has said to Naomi, looking forward to seeing the shot of the glossies. Me too. Glenn, by the way, too, I might say, Shroom Saturday will be happening this Saturday, Glenn. So we've got a few weeks in the bag, and we'll get onto that. On shrooms, mushrooms, Glenn takes amazing shots of mushrooms each Saturday when he's out and about at Mount Annan, usually. We've had another death in Victoria, in the township of Clunes, where somebody has had a tea or a soup made with mushrooms that they thought, this is at a wellness centre too, that they thought apparently were magic mushrooms, but they're now dead. They were poisonous mushrooms. So we've had the mushroom murderer, and now we've had the accidental mushroom death, and both in country towns. And then on the tally early this morning, on a repeat of Better Homes and Gardens that I was seeing very early this morning, they were showing people how to fossick for wild mushrooms. And it was in a pine plantation. But I think it's very, very inappropriate for any TV shows to be saying, yes, go out fossicking for mushrooms. I think that very few people can reliably identify mushrooms. So don't pick them. Glenn has said, thanks, Glenn. Thanks, Grant, for a great show. Hard for you to cover all the sad news, but needs to be done. I wouldn't say it's hard. It's frustrating. I am super frustrated and disappointed. I'm disappointed because I really believed that we were going to have an activist, conservation-led government. I really believe that biodiversity was something that was important to them. But and Naomi says, my goodness, how could you mix those particular types of mushrooms up? First, don't go for magic mushrooms in the pine forest. I would sort of say, hey, unless you're super experienced at this stuff, don't pick any mushroom out there, because so many of them look very, very similar. And even if they are not fatally toxic, many of them are enough to make you quite seriously unwell with some kind of gastric issues. Some of them cause damage, whether they might not be going to kill you, but some of them cause damage to your digestive tract. Some of them raise your blood pressure to really dangerous levels and stuff. Just, if you don't know what you're doing, don't do it. And my point being, I don't think anyone should be encouraging anyone to be picking wild mushrooms or toadstools unless they really have skills in identifying them. Yeah, especially since so much of the stuff you see online that is identifying mushrooms, often photos of Northern Hemisphere mushrooms. So, yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. So, folks, there we go. There we go. Almost exactly on an hour and a half from the time we actually started having a proper conversation. So, what will we say? Today is Thursday. I might pop up tomorrow because there is a lot of stuff I read in preparation for this show. Then I do want to talk about a few more of the issues, and I'll be back for Habitat Gardening on Saturday morning. Habitat gardening was great last week. I thought it was great getting to meet Fiona. I hope you all enjoyed that. I haven't had a look and seen what the replay kind of stats were. I don't know how many people have had a look. Hopefully it's lots. Naomi says, don't eat wild mushrooms at all. Agreed. Angel of Death looks like a lot of edible ones. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And even some of the edible ones can be can have very different effects on different people. So, yeah, much as I hate to say it, get your mushrooms from the supermarket. Or grow your own mushrooms. I'm starting that soon, by the way. We're going to have a couple of homemade mushroom farms here. So next, I've just got to confirm again, but next Monday, Claire Neems will be talking to me. That's going to be at 9 a.m. So that's going to be an early one because Claire's in the Northern Hemisphere. But we'll be talking about the adaptability of migratory birds and her recent research. So yeah, I must email her today. Tomorrow, no, not tomorrow. Next Thursday, which is Anzac Day, it's also World Penguin Day. So hopefully we'll have some penguin info. And it's my birthday next Tuesday. So I might just do a ridiculously fun birthday stream. In fact, I might be reaching out to many of the people that I regularly interact with on social media and say, hey, just pop on in whenever you feel like it. Those of you on the friends/members mailing list will get a link. You will be invited to just pop in at any time. So that's next Tuesday. I don't know when we'll start. Probably midday-ish, 1 o'clock-ish as normal. So that's it, folks, for today. I'm really looking forward to getting back talking to people about research about particular birds and maybe not having to be so caught up in policy stuff, but I don't think I would be doing my job. I certainly don't feel comfortable to only be talking about the sunny bits and the fun, beautiful birds and everything if there's no chance that these birds are going to be protected, thanks, Naomi, into the future. I think it's incumbent on all of us to make a bloody difference. That reminds me. I can't remember where it was, but was it Namurka? I saw looking in one of the bird watching groups. A gang turned up somewhere that I wouldn't have ever expected it to be. But yeah, we'll talk about. We might do a review of some of that. I'll get. Hopefully, we'll have Ricky on again shortly, and we can talk about some of the bird watching highlights. I might be doing some of the bird watching highlights on the birthday. Anyway, there we go. There's me rambling. I've taken 20 minutes to say see you later. I'm Grant. I'm a bird nerd. This is Bird Emergency. Make sure you do join me 9:30 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time if you're interested in habitat gardening and the general concept of making your garden wildlife friendly. We might talk Melaleucas. We might talk Melaleucas this week on Saturday morning. See you, folks. Thanks for your comments and your interests. And if anything has made you think, do go and follow. Go and have a look at The Guardian and the conversation, just search Plibisec or biodiversity laws, and you'll get access to all of those articles. And yeah, go to the source. Go to the source. See you later, folks.